Entertainment. Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM. AM 630. WMAL.
7:07 on a Monday morning. Coming up a half hour from now, Trevor Maddich will join us. We'll get into the Redskins game. Pat Buchanan on the program 1 hour from now. He's got a new book called Suicide of a Superpower. Looking forward to talking to Pat Buchanan.
Look at interview.
Joe DiGenova, our legal expert, joins us now. So we had a interesting conversation about how you would grade the Obama administration and their foreign policy. What kind of grade would you give this administration for foreign policy? Joe can't hear me. Hit that button. There you go. What kind of grade would you give the Obama administration for their foreign policy at this point?
Oh, sorry, guys. I didn't realize I was on the air.
That's okay. Can you hear me okay, Joe?
I can hear you now for the first time. Foreign policy is cognitive dissonance gone wild. I think basically, you judge the foreign policy by the attack on the foreign policy of the Bush administration. They've adopted all of the anti-terrorism techniques, with the exception of enhanced interrogation. Remember, they don't interrogate anybody anymore; they just kill them.
Right.
So I think, from a foreign policy standpoint, given the president's goals, he gets high marks for what he wanted to do, which was demonize America, belittle our accomplishments like Normandy, Korea, World War I. Obviously, we're the bad guys in it. However, along with that has come this rather bizarre notion that while he hates everything that George Bush stood for, he's done about 95% of it continuing in the war on terror. So I think, given what the president's goals were, he gets an A+ for what he wants to do.
What do you make of the UN wanting an investigation into Gaddafi's death? Well,
this is the triumph of form over substance. The UN, which of course thinks nothing of the murdering of hundreds of thousands of people in African countries and does nothing about it, all of a sudden has a warm place in its heart for Muammar Gaddafi. That's because the General Assembly is composed mostly of dictators. The problem with the UN and these types of calls is that the laughability factor exceeds the seriousness factor by exponential numbers. I think the notion of how he died, this was a revolution. This was a war. People get killed in war. He was the head of the army. Putting a bullet in his brain is perfectly acceptable under international law.
I want to ask you about this Lululemon case. The trial is starting today. They're going to start picking the jury. This is the one where the co-worker of a woman brutally murdered her inside a yoga studio.
Right.
And then she tried to sort of pin it on some just intruders. And now I've heard some rumors that they might try to claim she was insane by reason of many concussions from playing soccer. What do you hear about this trial?
Well, I think, this is sort of the last refuge of a scoundrel defense. I mean, from the very beginning, this woman showed calculation, planning. It's clear that what according to the police, she had been caught at embezzlement and theft from the store by the co-worker that she killed. At this point, given her manipulations of the police during the post-crime interrogation process, where she clearly lied about what had happened, they're going to have a tough time selling that defense, even in Montgomery County, where the juries, as you know, never raise their voices. They only raise your taxes. The bottom line is, I think it's going to be a very difficult defense to sell, and I think it will be a failure.
Joe, you mentioned in prepping for this interview that you had read an article in the New York Times that had to do with the judicial nominee process, which has ground to a halt and has been problematic for many, many years. It was based on a New York Times article written that said that the ugliness started with Bork. Having been somebody who was there during the Bork confirmation hearings, I couldn't agree more with you on that. But how has it spiraled out of control since?
Well, what's interesting, this is a great article which you would not think you would find in the New York Times. They have a new columnist named Joe Nacero, who was basically a business reporter that they converted to an op-edist. He wrote a fantastic op-ed piece detailing how the Democrats decided that the only way they could defeat Bork in 1987. By the way, Sunday, October 23rd, was the 24th anniversary of the defeat of Bob Bork in the U.S. Senate.
Don't remind me.
Yeah, I know. But that started a decline in civility in the Capitol, and it was a decline in civility that the Democrats calculated. And as you will recall, shortly after the Bork defeat, The Republicans went after Jim Wright in the House of Representatives, who was the Speaker, and eventually got him to resign over a bad book deal, which of course then led to Newt resigning over a bad book deal ultimately. I mean, they started an out-of-control kind of partisanism that has never relented. But what was fascinating about it was for the first time see a liberal actually say, we started this and we have nobody to blame but ourselves. And that's why the president is not going to get a single additional important judicial nominee unless he's reelected until 2012. And remember, this virus has spread to all parts of the nomination process.
Right.
Remember, the president nominated this guy Becker to be the head of the NLRB.
Right.
He's the guy that issued the ruling saying that Boeing could not move its plant to Alabama. Becker's recess appointment expires in December, and he cannot be reappointed. That means that the NLRB will be down to one Republican and one Democrat with no quorum, and they will not be able to do business. And therefore, without a Republican nominee, which the Senate refuses to confirm, there will be no NLRB, there will be no judicial nominations. It's time for an election.
You're right, though. It did start with Bork. And do you remember who were the engineers of the attack on Robert Bork? One of them was Ted Kennedy. That's right. And Joe Biden was chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee at the time.
And they tried the same thing with Clarence Thomas, but Clarence had a plan, and it was to demonize the Democrats and make them racist, which was, as you recall, he called it a high-tech lynching.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Bork didn't have that option.
All right, you brought up Joe Biden, so you've heard the comments he made last week about how if you don't pass the jobs bill, there are going to be more rapes and murders. As a former prosecutor, does that make any sense to you?
No, actually, it's pretty depressing to see the Vice President of the United States going around being a hack, and that's exactly what Biden was being. We all know that Vice Presidents historically have been the cutting edge for a president. They do the dumb and stupid things and hard things that a president is not supposed to be seen saying. However,
so Biden's actually an overachiever.
Yeah, actually, you hit it right on it. Actually, very few vice presidents have gone as far and as poorly as the vice president has gone. This is under that new thing that Dave Letterman's going to have on his show, which is called "Stupid Democratic Politicians."
Yeah, right.
Don't hold your breath on that.
Or just the Biden files.
Right. Biden report.
All right, Joe. Good to talk to you as always. We'll see you.